and welcome back to the channel. We are the Mighty Guru Yoghourt. Oh yes, we are. Well now, we hope you enjoyed the Spain trip films. We certainly had a fabulous time making them. That was a short but very, very sweet holiday. So many high points, and it really was interesting to be riding that huge beast, the Triumph Tiger 1200 Rally Pro. It was way too big for me. I don't want to ride a motorcycle that large ever again. No. And so with that in mind, whilst I am quite taken with the idea of having at some point in the future an adventure bike, it certainly won't be something that large. What we have done for the upcoming European trip, which is of course our big holiday this year, 2.5 weeks thereabouts, is we have decided to be renting out of Prague a BMW F650. One of the biggest problems that we had with the Triumph in Barcelona was that it was very difficult for the Murgatroyd to get off, and she really was struggling with it. The F650 is much lower, and so she shouldn't be struggling so much with that one. Well, regular viewers might remember a little sequence in the Spanish films where we were exploring the city walls in Girona, and the Murgatroyd and I were perched atop the city walls talking about the trip, and the Murgatroyd was bemoaning the fact that I like to avoid over-planning a trip. Now, the Murgatroyd has a different approach than I do, and so it's always a question of compromise, you know. However, this trip that we're about to undertake in, I think, about 3 weeks' time, I think it was 3 weeks yesterday, is really quite complex. It's multifaceted. We have, you might remember, not only a week of motorcycle hire out of Prague, we are also backpacking and camping, and we also have these Interrail tickets which entitle us to 4 days of unlimited travel on trains in Europe. I'm quite excited about that aspect of the trip. And so I guess really the trip can be broken down into 2 parts. The 7 days of motorcycling, which will involve going to the Hell's Mine in Czech Republic. I've spoken at length about that in previous videos. Really excited about that. We're going to be doing that, I think, on my birthday. We are then going to be, during the motorcycle part of the trip, following fairly closely the course of the River Danube, which goes through 10 countries, 10 different countries, yes. So that's the bit that's going to be loosely planned. So that's me getting my way of, like, the plan is no plan. The first 3 days of the trip, starting with the flight from Edinburgh out to Dusseldorf, and then the trip to Frankfurt, and then the night train from Frankfurt to Prague, are all getting meticulously planned. Yes, that makes the Murgatroyd happy. We will pre-book the campsites that we're going to be staying on. And apparently the Murgatroyd tells me there are lots and lots of campsites in Prague, or very near to Prague. We'll then have the 7 days where we see what happens. But we have a final deadline at the end of the holiday. On the last day of the holiday, we absolutely have to be in Gdansk. Yes, Gdansk. Now, I'm actually looking forward to going there, not least because of the historical aspect. Readers, viewers will not be surprised to hear that I'm particularly interested in the rise of the solidarity movement in Poland in the 1980s. Solidarność, led, you might remember, by Lech Walesa, a fairly typical lefty with his half-baked ideas, who thought that he could run capitalism better than the previous government. Well, history has shown us what a futile approach that was, and indeed always will be. Capitalism, as my viewers will know, is, in my opinion, not capable of being run in the interests of everybody, but rather only in the interests of the tiny minority. Doesn't matter about your left-leaning politics. Capitalism is capitalism, and you can't change that without overthrowing it completely. Anyway, moving on. We will take the motorcycle back to the depot in Prague 7 days after picking it up, and we will then make our way northwards up through Poland. We want to go to the salt mines, which apparently are in Krakow, and then we will use up our remaining 2 days of train travel, basically exploring Poland over a period of, I think it's 4 or 5 days, on the way to Gdansk. And once we're in Gdansk, we're going to have 1.5 days there, and then we are flying home. So there we are, that's the rough itinerary. The 7 days on the motorcycle, of course, is the bit that I'm looking forward to most, but I'm sure that absolutely all of it will be fascinating. I'm very excited about this trip, and it is the reason that I'm doing as much extra work as I can get at the moment. And I'll be at work until 3 o'clock tomorrow afternoon, there or thereabouts. So I was out riding all day yesterday. I thought I'd try an experiment, and I'm glad that I did. I went out riding all day and very deliberately did not take any cameras. I wanted then to remember what it was like to just go out riding and not have to be thinking about camera angles and all of the jiggery-pokery involved in filming your ride. And I did thoroughly enjoy it. So I'm glad that I did that. But on the way back, I was riding through Coniston, and I had to stop for petrol at the petrol station there, and I was hailed by a fellow motorcyclist who had her Triumph Thruxton 900 parked up in the very corner of the petrol forecourt. It had broken down. It simply would not start. So of course she asked me, could I help? Well, I did everything I could. Without going into all of the details, I did all of the usual checks that you would do to diagnose a problem. The battery didn't appear to be flat, because when you turned the key, the lights came on, the horn was working. She had the idea. This was a German woman, by the way, name of Susie. Hello Susie, if you're watching this. Of course she got carded. She thought that the problem was the wires coming out of the left-hand handlebar controls. I don't know why she thought that. She'd been talking to a friend back in Germany, and that's what they'd suggested. Anyway, after about 10 minutes, we tried to bump start it, so on and so forth. I'd been in touch with the local bikers club, the Millham Bike Group, and bikers being bikers, within 10-15 minutes somebody had phoned me up and was talking me through what they thought the problem might be. And then who should turn up on the forecourt but a guy that I met in my little lay-by lurking spot near Torva, who is also a fellow motorcyclist. He was in his car on this occasion. Now, he's a boat mechanic. He came over, said, hey, you know, exchange greetings, these things. He got stuck into it. I stood back because this guy knows more about motorcycles than I do. And yeah, he worked out what the problem was. The problem was that the battery wasn't charging properly. And whilst it had enough power in it to be making the lights work and making the horn work, it simply wasn't enough to start the bike. Well, of course, he's got a power pack in the back of his car, and we get that out, the bike starts first time. So Susie from Germany, I think she said Bavaria, was on her way, and I was glad to be what help I could be. But that just shows that bikers are pretty good people. I think that the vast majority of us know what it's like to be broken down on the side of the road, and we also know what it's like to have somebody pull up and help you, and that's why we do it for each other. So anyway, it was a lovely story. I'm still in touch with Susie. She made it to the youth hostel in Wasdale, and the plan was she was going to the nearest Halfords today to get a new battery. So, happy ending all around. I'm stuck behind a motorhome for the moment. Oh well. There's absolutely nowhere to overtake in the near future, but I'm going to pull over at the top of the hill here and end this little film. I hope you've enjoyed it. I've enjoyed making it, and we will see you in the next one. And remember, we are the Mighty Guru Yoghourt. Oh yes, we are.